In 3, 2, 1. Welcome everybody to FrameCast number 24. We're one away to a quarter to 100. That is pretty insane. How about that, Drew?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a weird milestone. Maybe it's not even a milestone at all. But it's a... Okay, well, actually, no. I'm not going to do this. I've been listening to the FrameCast, and I'm like, yeah, these weird, funny links that you're trying to do every time, they don't work. So I'm not going to try and do them. Anyway, today we're talking about what Warframe Railjack teaches us about expectations. Because you actually sent me a message after the Devstream about how you thought about it. So what was going on with the Devstream last week, Drew?
So I'm pretty sure anyone that's listening or here right now, they've seen the the dev stream for themselves, or at least they've caught up with what's happened. So there are a few key points that I personally was not happy with. So one, the new war has been delayed. Now, the new war to me means a lot because I want the plot. I want to know the expansion of the world, so on and so forth. Because right now we have lots of MacGuffins thrown in our general direction, but there's very little that ties it all together.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, this is something that you keep on. The next point is that Railjack seems to be coming ahead of everything else, which, again, looking at the gameplay, there seems to be very little in forms of communication between Megan, Trevor, Sheldon, and Rebecca. I mean, Sheldon and Rebecca were able to talk easily because they were in the same room. But to me, this had large indications or flags or whatever that you want to call it, making me worried that this was coming out too soon. And then there was the comment about how content creators and various fans, players themselves do not like the fact that Kuvaliches kill you when they defeat you, and it was kind of nonchalantly backhanded. Oh, I've not actually seen that response. And it's like, it's literally everywhere. The forums have it, Reddit has it, Twitter has it.
The FrameCast has had it? Oh no, we did it on 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock had it.
10 o'clock had it. It's come up quite a lot, but it was kind of dismissed as something that people kind of don't care about.
So, to break down where we're going to be focusing on today, maybe in particular, even though I do want to get back to the points of the Devstream because it also applies to me, this game which I play. But the main point of today is that we're looking at what does Railjack right now, or like this development within Warframe, teaches us about expectations within products, within things that you use. As an example, we here, both Drew and I, have spent over 6 years and counting, you're already on 7 years, on playing this game, being invested in this game, making content for this game, and we're finding our expectations being sold a bit short. And I think that there's a very interesting angle to take a look at, well, what is particular in Warframe's case, and is there something that might also be particular in other forms of media cases? Now, I do want to put a big asterisk here, is that if we are going to be talking about Warframe, I don't want it to be necessarily fully negative, in the sense of, I know a lot of people's point of view will be that they spend hours and hours grinding this game. Mostly people are counting their hours by the thousands. And at that point, they're going to be so saturated with this content that they want to find something very specific. And when they don't find that very specific thing, like this story niche, or this endgame niche, or this fashion niche, or this update regularity niche, then they will say, this entire game is crap, I hate it, get it out of my face, I don't want it anymore. That's not a point which I think is very healthy to make. Then again, I don't think Warframe is 100% good, so I do want to keep a fair and balanced eye on it. But yeah.
One thing we'll preface this right now. If you are listening to us live and you decide we don't want to hear the point that we're making from Warframe's point of view, just tell us in chat and we'll change to another medium where we can highlight the same concerns or, the same what you call blows or, where we feel upset. Or alternatively, if we do go on a tangent, we're talking about something like World of Warcraft, and you're like, okay, well, how is this relevant to Warframe? Just tell us and we'll bring it back to Warframe.
Mm-hmm.
Help us guide this conversation, because we don't want to just crap on thing. We don't want to appear too negative about anyone.
Yeah, it's a very easy thing to just go in and be like, yep, we both think it's kind of shit, but it isn't, because if it was all shit, we wouldn't have been invested in it. How long have you been invested in Warframe now? 7 years?
My account's over 7 years old now. Yes.
Are there any other forms of media where you have been involved with for 7 years or similar, maybe longer?
Maybe. Oh gosh, what's YouTube? I think 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
What else is that? So that we talk about things I'm heavily invested in.
Yes.
Yeah, so the Marvel movies would be another instance. The World of Warcraft, I was heavily invested for a very long time. What else? There are a number of platforms. What about yourself?
I think that Warframe is one of the very first things where I've actually been so much invested in that I'm actually keeping up with the content update schedule, keeping up with, or have been keeping up with their ideas of what they want to do, with all the patches and every single update. I don't think there's ever been a type of media, unless we're going to be talking about anime series, where I have been invested in for a very long time, just because of the fact that they have been running for such a long time. However, I don't read up on manga to see what's coming up, and I don't go to forums or any form of podcast and then criticize like, oh, they're taking this turn with the story. I don't care. It's like I just sit back and watch and enjoy. So
No, that to me still counts.
yeah, I can agree on that. I can also disagree in the sense of I think that passive consumption of something is in a sense different than what we're doing here with Warframe, where we're talking about it quite frequently about things which they're doing and which we think they should do different. I've never said about One Piece like, oh, which is one of the series I watch, oh, they should like, I hate that they're going this direction. They really should change it like this, otherwise no one will be watching it anymore. It's like I'll just be like,
Yeah.
okay, whatever. So how has it been with World of Warcraft? Were you as invested as you are with Warframe, with keeping up with everything that they're updating and shit like that?
Oh god, I used to be. So God, what was it? I was heavily invested from primarily the first expansion. I did play
Mm-hmm.
during the vanilla, play the first expansion a lot. Played the second. I played Wrath of the Lich King, which was the second expansion. Hell of a lot. Cataclysm, same. Mists of Pandaria, again, I absolutely loved that one. And then they released Warlords of Draenor, and it was just like, what is this mess? Then they released Legion, and I was playing that a lot. But then when I got to maximum level, I stopped playing because literally none of my friends were playing anymore. So like Loz was doing he was in the prime of his PhD, so he couldn't play. And
Mm-hmm.
then they've released the latest expansion, which I've played, and I'm just like, this is just a hot steaming pile of garbage.
So when you encountered the first patch where you were like, this is a big mess. How many years have you been involved with the game at that point?
Oh, jeez.
Roughly.
Oh, I need to work out when. I think it first came. I need to work out the release. I don't know. I'm thinking like 10 or so years.
Okay. I can't ask you about 10 years into Warframe, but hey, I mean, it's not out here for
No.
10 years. But
Yeah.
um how long was it? Well, I mean, then the next step when you were like, oh, it's now a big pile of garbage, that was more than 10 years, 10 years plus. So because I'm trying to see that um something that Sakima says is like I think a lot of players are generally too invested into the game, and that's something which I think is a big important thing when it comes to getting upset or not having your expectations being met when it comes to a game or an update or an entry in the series. Because let me give you an example. I have played a lot of the Call of Duties back in the day, and I really liked them as a casual thing, but I never really kept up with them as like I'm buying every single entry. I think I have most of them though, but not because I was like I really need to have this new one. So I know that there have been a lot of people that have been angry about what they did with Advanced Warfare, where they screwed around with double jump and stuff like that. And I've played some of the newer ones where there's character customization. I'm like, why the hell do I need to like change the look of my character when it's just like a Call of Duty? It's like the character just dies. Like I don't care what he looks like, but I don't care about that because it's just a game that I sometimes play. I think that when it comes to the longer, like to a time where you're further and further more involved, there might be a point where you're like, where things start to matter too much.
I kind of get where you're coming from. Like, to me, World of Warcraft or Warframe or the Marvel comics, things like that, they were massively. I invested myself into them. Like, I'd watch people at work and things. I would get heavily invested in Game of Thrones. I couldn't understand it. Like, I'd watched Game of Thrones and I was so, wow, cool. That's nice. I
Mm-hmm.
found, so there are sometimes people can get really heavily invested in things like Twilight or whatever. And not everyone is the same. Not everyone consumes the medium the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved Warcraft for the simple reason of how dynamic the world was, how complicated, how brilliant it was, so on and so forth. And then they did crazy crap like, oh yeah, we're gonna bring in time travel, and like, why?
So,
You did, yeah.
yeah. So, oh, here we go. This is the first time that I've seen you come up to me and say, I'm kind of taking a step back now from Warframe in the sense of I'm not going to be playing it all the time anymore because I'm afraid that this might not turn out as I think it would have been.
So do you want
Has
me to talk about this?
well, I'd like to know, has there been a time previously where you felt similar or maybe less than this, but in the same vein towards Warframe? Or is this the first time that you're
I
experiencing
think
it?
truly this is the first time I've ever watched a dev stream and was left disappointed. Is disappointed the right word? Like, it very much felt like the expectations of the game's development were not looking favorable. That was my, as I was looking at it, it's like I feel that we're on a downward path now, right? Can I elaborate as to why?
Yeah, sure. Why?
Okay, because so like I'm not just a doomsayer. I do have my reasons as to my
Mm-hmm.
concerns. We have Arc. Everyone knows I love Arc.
Mm-hmm.
Arcwing has been nerfed massively, right? But it's for the betterment of people. It's so unrealistic. Why on earth does a jetpack suddenly just stop on a dime? Doesn't matter. People like it. Doesn't matter if I don't, right? Then we've got the fact that the player base treat Arcwing on majority as a method of transportation, not as a weapons platform. The
Mm-hmm.
fact that the game itself can't treat it as a weapons platform is what it is, right? But in watching the dev stream, I saw things which was just like, this is a clear indicator of failure, right? The fact that you do not know what your teammates are doing. Rebecca consistently said, oh, what are Megan and Trevor doing? Didn't know. She had to pull up a map screen, which to me is a point of friction, right? It's like, oh, where was what you call? Am I going the right direction to the supermarket, right? And then all of a sudden you get a giant paper map and you put it in front of you. You cannot see anything else, right? It's just the map, just to see what Megan and Trevor were doing. So this is a barrier of entry. Additionally, you're unable to readily communicate to other people, right? What happens if someone leaves the Arcwing? They go out into space. Sorry, not Arcwing, the Railjack. They go out into Arcwing and they're doing their Arcwing things. And like, I can't see them on the map. Where are they on the map? Oh, I can't see them as well. Like, there are so many barriers of entry to me. And I've played games like Guns of Icarus, which is very similar to what Railjack is trying to be. If you've ever played Guns of Icarus, you know what I'm talking about. Being able to communicate with your teammates is key. Because if you cannot readily tell your teammates, you need to fix the engines, you need to man the guns, you need to pilot, we need to go up, we need to go down. If you can't tell your teammates that, then it's going to go down, right? And that's my biggest concern. DE have put in so much time and effort into producing Railjack that because it's not a fully complete product, people are not going to play it, a la Liches, already happening with Liches. If people aren't going to play it, they're not going to continue to invest in it, and we're not going to get the complete. People have told me that, there's no concern. DE will see it through, right? Tell that to Ark.
So, first thing I want to highlight on is your concern is not necessarily with the mechanics for you, because if you were to say to me like, yeah, you need to pull up a map to see what other people are doing and you can't talk to them in chat, I would say open up Discord. Just like grab a bunch of friends, you can talk like that.
Yeah.
However, am I right in that your concern is that even though you will be able to play it and work around it, the expectation or like the reality will most likely be that if something takes multiple steps to do, which involves other apps like Discord and having a available friend group to join in with you, the general player base will shy away from it, just like Arcwing, and it will turn out to be a system that floats around in this game, which has taken over a year of development time, which is then doomed to just like sit somewhere and not do much.
To me, it's very much a case of the public play will just suck, right? Because people won't be able to communicate. Unless people start putting in acronyms. Loz has told me you shouldn't have to worry about it, right? Because the player base will find a way. Again, tell that to Arcwing, right? Oh, but Arcwing's bad, so on and so forth. Railjack will not be good on launch. It will have potential. It will have so much that it could become like Star Trek VR, right? But if the player base does not gel with it, then it will not continue, right? Unless DE have said to internally, no, we are working on Railjack for 6 months solid, and only at the end of it will we determine whether or not it's success. Then okay, fine. But there were plenty of things promised in Fortuna, never got. And there's even stuff that I know that I can't talk about.
So it's funny you bring up Fortuna, because actually I want to ask you a question around the elements that we do have in Warframe, like the open world such as Fortuna and Plains Phylon. When was the last time that you've been in one of those?
In Plains and Fortuna, I both went to for the building of the dry dock. So if we ignore that, God knows, probably like 3-4 months ago when I last did the night waves.
Okay, so in what sense are the open worlds not a failure and Arcwing is?
So the reason why the open worlds aren't a failure is A, because they consistently pull players back to them. Oh, you need to go get this infested bug. It's funny that it only appears in the plains. Well, I mean, you could argue if you were to put that in Arcwing, that would force people to go do Arcwing,
So
right? And by
do you actually go to do the Plague Star mission or the fire patches on Fortuna when they come out? Do you do that
no,
now?
no.
So if they were to implement something like that on Arcwing, would you not do it once and then not return to it?
Yeah, but that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay,
So
clarify, please.
if for example, sorry, to clarify, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm doing Nightwave, if you were to put on Nightwave, what you got, an achievement, just go do an Arcwing mission, just one mission,
Mm-hmm.
and you get 1,000 Nightwave rep, I'd instantly do it, right? But there's no reason to. You used to have the weapons on Arcwing missions, right?
Mm-hmm.
People didn't do them. So they changed it, and thus the only way to get the Arcwing weapons was on Syndicate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've taken away necessity to do Arcwing, right? Trillium, is it Trillium? I think it's a resource only available on Arcwing mission until they added it to the name of the underwater sea lab, right? It's there as well. So what you call this exclusive thing that you needed to do Arcwing, nope, gone, right? So, like, if there were enemies on the planes, right, that you could only deal damage to while in the air, you had to be a higher elevation than them, that would be brilliant. But there aren't any, right?
So your um your requirement for having something be like Arcwing and not Arcwing in terms of like success rate depends on whether it has required things that you need to do solely that for. So whether that be events or whether that be resources or whether that be items or even enemies that you can only attack or gain or acquire through doing that single thing. Is that right? Because I don't think we're talking about player numbers. Because if we're talking about, go ahead.
So what I'm talking about, a success of an item is only measured on how people play it. If people do not play it, it's unsuccessful, right? So in the sense, Fortuna was a huge success because the second it came out, everyone was playing it, right? But now it's diminished hell of a lot, right? But that doesn't mean it wasn't a success. Yeah? But the thing is, no one ever liked Arcwing, right? It was rejected pretty much instantly. People just didn't like it, especially doing it for the Limbo quest when Arcwing first came out, right? Limbo's Theorem.
So,
Yeah?
what had they did they have any big releases like an open world or something like Arcwing before Arcwing's update?
Not to that scale, no.
So if the success of Arcwing, okay, so if the success of Arcwing depended solely on, we're not talking about current player numbers, because as we look at Fortuna, as we look at Plains of Eidolon, they haven't been able to hold their drink either. They've spilt that out over time as well. If we look at systems like Conclave, if we look at systems like even Index or Reform modes, which I think the Index is played a bit more than Reform, but Reform far less.
Index is played way more than the.
It is
like,
played way more.
is just forgotten.
Yeah, Reform is forgotten. But we're not talking about current player numbers. We're also not necessarily talking about the required things that are on there. You're saying when it comes to, does it get the player's interest when they launch it, when it's there? And Arcwing didn't have that. Well, wasn't that just because this was the very first time that they did something where they basically took the entire game of Warframe and duplicated it, but then made it in space? And as a result, they figured that, hey, you do have to have an economy reset, which means you're going to have new resources, you're going to have new things, because otherwise players that have been playing for a long time can just swap everything, just complete everything and be done with it. So you're going to have an economy reset. But this economy reset was so big that people had to have entire new frames, entire new mods, entire new everything, which could only be acquired through doing the Arcwing thing. And it wasn't well taught at the time because you were just launching to space, and then the missions were very limited because they were designed for just ground missions instead of air missions. And if those things were holding it back, wasn't that just a beginner's flaw? That was the first time they did it. It failed. Well, first try, you'll hardly ever succeed. So if that was the case, then isn't the requirement for something to be successful only being successful at launch not a little bit too harsh?
So I'm trying to comprehend your question.
Okay.
Whether or not something is successful based on
long story short, just to make it very long story short.
Yeah.
You're saying that Archwing isn't very successful, and I'm asking why is it not very successful? And I asked about player numbers. You're like, it's not about the player numbers right now because Fortuna and PoE are low as well. So it's not about that. Then I was like, okay, what is it? Is it about the required defense that you were talking about? So like the defense that's only on PoE, the missions that are only on Fortuna, the weapons or the resources that are only in Archwing, which are no longer only Archwing. Like, no, it's Fortuna was successful because when it launched, people loved it. And then Archwing, when it launched, people didn't like it. But it was their very first time that they launched something so big. So isn't it a bit harsh to be judging Archwing as it is now by the fact that it was their first time trying to launch something really big and it kind of flopped?
So the problem that I see is to me, very obvious key weaknesses of Railjack, right? So yes, Archwing had its flaws, right? Not having a 3-dimensional radar was one of them, right? To me, not having 6 degrees of freedom was one of them. Regardless of all of this, right? We saw Railjack in its development just a few days ago, and it's heavily hinted that they're looking to bring it to our hands soon. I genuinely reckon that this is intended to be the Christmas update. Right? I think that is the plan. It is to be the Christmas update, and I think because the studio closes over the course of Christmas, right? So what happens when someone turns around and says, it's like this is bad. I can't talk to anyone, right? I can't communicate. Like, public play will tank, right? This is my prediction. I could be horrifically wrong, right? This to me is a very. I'm gonna turn this on the head. World of Warcraft, right? Something else I've been heavily invested in, or was invested in for years, right? They were constantly releasing raids and dungeons as the expansions went on. So during the lifespan of an expansion, they would release raids and dungeons. But people wouldn't play either of them, right? Because there was a barrier to entry. The barrier was communication. People didn't feel comfortable talking to other players they didn't know. Ultimately, during World of Warcraft's second expansion, Wrath of the Lich King, in the last patch, 3.3? Something like that, they released the looking for groups system, which allowed players, any player, to just join another player. This is exactly the public matchmaking system that, name the game, Warframe has, right? So, Xeno, what's your point? People never talked to each other in looking for group. People would just, I'm tank, I do thing. I had a button, which was the tilde key, right above tab and next to 1, right? That was used to mark the target I wanted the players to kill, right? I was the tank. I dictated what they killed because I needed to make sure I kept aggro and kept everyone safe. So I had a button that says, mark that one. And it became a universal language that the skull icon was the thing you hit. Right? But looking at Railjack, there is no form of communication. So will people have to start creating groups and go, right, okay, yeah, you're a random, let's jump in Discord together, right? How much effort? One of the biggest problems with the raids for Warframe was it took twice as long to set up an 8-man group than it was to actually run the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever do them?
I did. I
Yeah.
did sometimes. It became easier when I got to know people that did them. But I want to see if I can bring this to a core issue, well, a core point, and I want you to let me know whether I'm on the money or whether I'm completely off. But I think, as far as I hear from you, that your problem isn't necessarily whether Railjack will be perfect. Oh, whoops. Your problem isn't necessarily whether Railjack will be perfect at launch or whether people will continue to always play Railjack, because we're not talking about the success of something that's being added into the game and staying successful the entire time. Because if we look at every single component in Warframe so far, I don't think there have been any components that have necessarily been very continuously successful aside from the base gameplay, and I don't think there have ever been components that have ever been very a complete failure. I think the only thing that has been a complete failure has been, in the sense, raids, because they've just been let go of and we can't do them anymore. The rest of the things you can still all do. So even if Railjack is the way it is and people don't play it, well, you can still do it. I think your core issue is that if this launches and people don't like it at launch, it doesn't become popular, and thus, from experience, we know that DE won't develop for it because it's not popular. So your problem is not necessarily with whether the communication works well, whether the Railjack is successful at launch. It's DE will not go ahead and fix this and keep this thing up if it's not successful at launch. Is that right?
That is exactly my concern, right? I keep bringing back Arcwing. I keep bringing, when PoE first came out, Plains of Eidolon first came out, everything was being put on the plains, right? The Rope-a-Dope-List was also meant to be on the plains, but they moved it. They moved it to the Jupiter tile set because there were complaints that they're putting too much on the plane, right? Everything was going into this one area, which meant that no one saw the rest of the star chart. One of the reasons why I love Elite Sanctuary Onslaught so much is I get to see different old tiles that I rarely ever got to see before, right? Which was great. And my concern is, and since what you call, I literally just said it. Elite Sanctuary Onslaught, since Arbitrations, since Fortuna, since the Jupiter rework, right? The only thing the Plains has had are the Thumpers, the removal of the incursions, and the ability to pick up bounties while out on the plains, right? The ability to pick up bounties out on the plains, real simple stuff. Nothing new. Bounties still the same. Thumpers, annoying. They are really effing annoying because you have to shoot them from behind. Great. There's always facing you. The new lighting system, well, I mean, it's nice that not everything looks like it's dead, but planes got nothing. They have been dropped for the next thing.
So I'm trying to see. We identified that the problem with Arcwing, the problem with your problem, which I agree is also my problem. I very much agree with everything you say, but I'm just trying to see if I can pick some things apart. The problem with Railjack is that, as experience has told us, it a bad launch means that it won't be popular. And if it won't be popular, it won't be supported. And if it won't be supported, it will sit in a somewhat broken state, somewhat playable, somewhat broken state within the game. And if you really want to play it, you can play it, but it's there. So my question then, why is that a problem?
The problem I see is that there's a lot of heavy investment in getting something so big as Railjack done. It is.
Well,
It's costing.
I
Go
can
on.
see that it's a big investment for Warframe. And personally, I'm like, it's their money, their business decisions, and I hope that they do right by it, but their thing, their choice. However, I don't necessarily know whether it's damaging to Warframe. Follow me along here. Of course, it would be better if they were to release the best Railjack possible. But if they don't, their game has gotten to the point where it is without Railjack. So unless so we can include players that are like, I will continue playing and I will quit if Railjack is not the best it is. Which there might be probably people that will do that, but I don't think it's a very large number. I don't think that there is damage done to the game itself when something is being added onto it, which isn't very great. Or is there?
I think there can be.
Okay.
Because you've got to think about this. You've got so many people that are playing the game, they're anticipating the game, they're waiting to come out, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they release Railjack, yeah, okay, this is me just theory crafting and being, some kook, whatever. But as soon as it comes out, if it is not well received by the player base, well, what are the player base going to do? They're going to not play. They're going to find something else that's more entertaining. People, yourself and Zale, neither of you have finished getting all 13 Lich weapons, right? You have already turned to me and said, well, I've done one Lich, I don't need to do another one, right? What if we have the same mentality with well, I've done one node, I don't need to do another one, right? And the Railjack system has been a lot more work for DE than the Lich. Has been a lot more work than a lot of the systems because it has to have this whole new mechanic of basically space combat, right? I love it. I love the concept of it. But it is a huge concern. Oh, I gotta go get this. You know what it is.
Yeah.
Talk.
He's getting pizza. He's getting some really good pizza. I'm jealous. But actually, let me jump on something which being said in chat right now, where a lot of people seem to be agreeing with, which is the video says, our problem with judging if a piece of content is worth further investing in based on the launch is that their launches, Warframe's particular launches, are always disasters. How can you expect your player base to jump head first when the update struggles to work in the first place? Is he going to share the pizza? That's a big question, Tribal. But let me look at this. I think that there is one interesting implication when it comes to this statement, even though I do very much agree with what you're saying in the video, when it comes to that if we're judging a piece of content by the way that it's launched, and in our experience, Warframe's launches have been not the greatest, actually pretty bad most of the times. How can you expect your player base to jump head first when the update struggles to work? Well, the thing is that I can fully understand, because I share the sentiment that it's better to have an update which launches perfectly where everyone jumps in on. And your hope is that if you spend over a year on creating a piece of content, that you will have something where everyone will jump on. You want to have the best success. As an example, On my field, when I put a lot of effort into a video, I really hope that a lot of people will see it, because that will be hopefully worth it for the work that I put into it. And it will be bad, let's say, if it's below what I'm anticipating or what I want. So in that sense, it will be damaging to the game, in the sense of it's bad for the game if it performs below what everyone expects, or what Warframe expects. But so far, I think that the game has been rather successful, even though we're saying the even though we're saying we have been judging pieces of content by how successful they are when they launch, and we're also saying that the launches so far have been pretty poor or have been lacking. They could have been better. So if so far the launches have been not the greatest, and we are looking at the successfulness of content by the way that they're launched, then the fact that Warframe is thriving, well, I wouldn't say thriving, but is doing good enough to survive and grow, is a bit of a contradiction. So that is something where I'm rather keen on to see what this necessarily means, because a lot of people saying that Railjack fails, Warframe is dead, is something which is I don't agree with. I think it's a bit fear-mongering. But where necessarily is the fear, and where necessarily is it right to be worried about something, and where is it, well, this is the only thing which I would like to do. In all honesty, if I look at me personally, if I see Railjack and it's kind of like mediocre, I'll play it, but not so much. Just like with the Kuvaliches. If the Kuvaliches had been more enticing, it would have had more interest in me to play. But that's me personally. Is it a personal matter then, or is it about the game? Because so far we've just been talking about the game in general, not about a personal feeling towards it. So let's see what people are saying now. The video says, if you want to judge the value of a content update based on launch date, then don't screw up the launch in the first place. For example, on Fortuna launch, me and 100 people in the same clan were literally unable to jump in because it literally didn't work or barely worked. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So far, the launches haven't been very great. Let's see. Yeah, Yachan Kim says, I would rather have a new story quest compared to the Railjack update at this point. Content draw is killing the game. See, that is something which I don't know the numbers about, so it's really hard to be arguing this point. I would say yes. For me personally, the fact that we haven't had a lot of updates is personally not great. It is killing my interest in the game pretty badly. So if we were going to take the entire play based on me, then I would say yes. If Railjack fails, that'd be really bad for the game. But the player base is not me, and I don't know how much of their revenue and how much of their player base is dependent on people like me, or like you, or like Drew. And that is something which I think is important to keep in mind when we're talking right now on a discussion on the level of, we're talking about the entire game, not about our personal feelings, but just as like our fear, like our expectations of the game are not being met, and we're feeling negatively affected by it because we feel the entire game is going to suffer. We're looking at it at a game level, or is it a personal level where it's like, hey, we're saying that the entire game will suffer and people will quit, but when we actually saying people will quit, it actually means that I myself feel like I'm about to quit.
I think that you've highlighted a really valid. We're talking about a personal level here.
Mm-hmm.
And I did actually put out a post on Twitter, asking people what they thought. I'd like it to get to like 500 votes, because I think that's a good sample size. I mean, the upshot is right now it's at, I think, 150 votes, which is still a good sample size. But the majority of people, by not a large margin, were actually excited for Railjack. So, I mean, that's a good thing in and of itself. But at the same time, if it's not a massive increase, is it worth doing?
Well, how much does it matter in the sense like because yes, it's an interesting result that you have that like it's a very slim margin of people that actually are excited for it and people that aren't excited for it. But again, we're talking about a sample size that you pulled out of your audience.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about the entire game. And then again, I'm like I feel if I'm being honest, I feel that this is a much more personal thing, which we're portraying as a game thing. I feel that personally, we don't necessarily correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that personally we don't necessarily care about the larger player numbers. We don't necessarily care about what the general player base thinks because we don't know what the general player base thinks. To be honest, I can tell you what my friends and what the people that are in my community think because I speak with them. But I don't know about the general player base because I don't know the numbers. I don't know the numbers of the people that are actually playing and how many people think this and how many people think that. So I don't think it's about the game. I think it's more about, for me personally, if Railjack fails, that's the only thing that I was gonna do because that's the only thing that I haven't done yet. And if that doesn't do well on launch and Warframe won't develop further into it and it kind of grows into the stale thing, then I won't have interest in it. And therefore, I will be less likely to continue to play the game. And because this has been done so in the past before, it's even less likely that this will ever be something successful and that's something that will keep me around. So there's a bigger chance that I will move away from the game. And I think that the secondary concern might be not necessarily that, if the general player base is worried about this, then and they all leave, then the game might fail. I don't necessarily think that if that's our secondary worry, it's not necessarily that we're worried about, the game is gonna fail or D is gonna drop it. I think that our concern is more of our secondary concern is more of if that were to happen. It's not necessarily the problem of Warframe fails. It's more like I cannot play Warframe anymore if it fails. So I think this is more personal than
I think
game related.
So for me personally, right, if Railjack is not something that's capped, say it's a 6 or 7 out of 10, right? I'll probably play it for a few days during the Christmas period and then probably won't come back to Warframe until the next major update, or they try and redo the Railjack system. I'm not prepared to just flat out give up on Warframe. I think the only time that I would stop playing Warframe is if I outgrow it. Right? But I can say with absolute certainty that I was not overly incentivized to get my hopes up.
But is that a problem?
Right, okay. So this is a good way of segueing into things that are like.
Well, actually, okay. So because like the point that I want to try and highlight is actually one that Sakuma's made earlier when we started. You said in chat, is that isn't the problem necessarily that people are getting too invested into games or into media that their expectations like become a kind of like you compared it to like I'm gonna buy a jar of pickles out of the store, and if one is bent and is out of shape, then the whole world crashes and burns. Because there have been many controversies surrounding the Call of Duty series, because I'm aware that sometimes these topics pop by. But quite generally, I don't care. I've never cared about it. And still, I can come back to this franchise whenever I feel like, and I can have fun with it, and I can put it down, I can move away. And I have no problem moving away, and I have no problem that I missed some entries to that series, and I have no problem that I haven't played maybe Advanced Warfare or Ghosts, which were two series that were following up on like Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3, which were very successful franchises, and then Advanced Warfare and Ghost came around and it was like, well, this is horrible. And then they removed the campaign of one of the recent ones. And people were like, oh my God, they're moving away from like the World Wars and this is horrible, this future stuff. And then they went back to World War II and Modern Warfare now. And like, okay, hey, they're doing better. But like, honestly, I don't care that I missed out on them. I don't care. I'm just having fun. Whenever I want to play them, I'll play them. If I don't want to play it, I won't play it. And likewise, I think that if you won't play Warframe, is that a problem? I don't think so. If I won't play Warframe, is that a problem? I don't think so. If a Warframe update does bad, is it a problem? I don't know. It might be more that being too invested. Like, we're too invested into this thing that we really wanted to succeed because having it succeed means something. I don't necessarily know what that is, but I think that might be, we might be onto something there. Because honestly, is it really a problem if you take a break for Warframe for a couple of months? I don't know.
Oh
I
no,
don't think so.
not in the slightest. Not in the slightest. I mean, I would go back to Diablo 3 regularly to get an alternative sandwich, so to speak. It's just to have an experience of something else. However, I do think that there are fewer and fewer options available. Blizzard has turned into a right mess with the whole controversy with, Blitzchung and various other things. The plot of the latest World of Warcraft expansions, they're just a rehash of the older expansions. It's just like, come on, just do something new and original. Like, it's not that hard. You did a really good run of it before. Why have you suddenly, the lack of interest? Overwatch 2. Oh, yeah, Overwatch 2. Why? The first one's still around. Just make the first one better. Oh, no, there's no money in that. Bungie pulling away from Activision was a bloody good move for them. But the thing is, if you get heavily invested in something, which I think everyone is prone to do, when it turns sour, it's the worst experience out there. And I think for me, talking from maybe I'm just being pessimistic. Maybe I'm trying to lower my expectations. Maybe subconsciously, I'm just trying to warn everyone else, don't get your hopes up, right? Because if something like Railjack lands and it is a flop, there are plenty of people out there that did not like the sacrifice, right? They didn't like it at all. And likewise, if there's that similar feeling at the end of Railjack when we finally get piloted, you said that people didn't like the fact that they had to start their Arcwing from scratch. That's bloody well what's going to happen with Railjack. We saw it during the Devstream. If people didn't like it in Arcwing, bloody well doubt they're going to like it in Railjack. How often are people going to turn around and say, like, no, we've got to use my Railjack. We've got to use my Railjack. Why? It's like, because I want my Railjack to have the experience points. I was like, well, I want to play with my Railjack for the same reason. I'm just saying.
I share all your concerns when it comes to the Railjack thing. When it comes to like what they're announcing for Railjack, I can actually pull up the poll right here that you put up. I voted for not interested because I'm not. I'm like, I'll see when it comes out. I'm not excited about anything that comes around in Warframe. I'm like, I don't watch dev streams. I don't care. Once it comes around, I'll play it and I'll see what I think. And at the same time, when something comes around, I like it or I love it. But it's not the end of the world because I'll do something else. And I feel that when you're talking about games in general, like the point you made was like, okay, well, if I'm gonna have to leave Warframe, the crop that I can choose from is slimming down as well because I can't play Blizzard because Blizzard's games are not doing all that great right now. There are other games out there which are doing less, so there's less and less choice. To which point I'm saying, to which point I think is, well, aren't we catering ourselves, blocking ourselves off in the sense of, oh my God, if there are no interesting games to play, what am I gonna do? It's like, why did you start playing games? Because you just wanted to do something fun, and you didn't necessarily look towards, I want to do fun, and fun means this thing. No, you discovered fun. Well, you discovered games because at some point you didn't know about them and you didn't like them because you didn't know they existed, and then you moved to them and like, oh my god, I discovered this thing, I like it, and then you grew into it. And I personally feel that because that's the way that you get into things, that's also the way that you can get into other things. It's like, if there's a time where, like, I haven't been watching TV forever, and there was a time in which I was heavily invested into TV, and I would be upset when shows like Top Gear would change, like all the hosts went away. That was horrible for me, because what are they going to do? This is going to be horrible. This is going to be, what else am I going to watch? It's like, it turns out that I just discovered YouTube, and I'm not watching TV anymore. And this is not me saying that you should not, like, we should not play games because the games are like TV. It's like, I don't think that most of these things, yes, on a personal level, like, they may feel problematic, but I think that in general, it's the infestedness that might be more the problem than the thing being bad itself. Because as you say, and as I also say, is like, if I don't play Warframe, I don't play Warframe, whatever, man. And if I'm gonna watch a movie instead of play a game, whatever, man. It's like when it comes down to the point of it, do you care about playing Warframe, yes or no? Right now, I was like, yeah, not really. But what are you worried about? Well, that this thing will be so bad that I won't like it. So then, do you care about Warframe, playing Warframe, yes or no, or do you care? I feel that we found a contradiction, which I might be wrong, and maybe I'm running around in my head, but I feel that we're on a contradiction where we're saying we don't care whether we're playing Warframe or not, but we kind of do because we care about whether we will like Railjack or not. And it's like, why do you care about it? Because if I don't like it, then I won't play it. It's like, but you said you don't care about whether you're playing Warframe or not.
So just to clarify, I do really care about Warframe, right?
Mm-hmm.
I am heavily, I'm not going to lie, I am heavily invested in the game. I was heavily invested in Diablo 3. I was heavily invested in Heroes of the Storm. I was heavily invested in some other games, probably. I can't really think of many. But the Diablo 3 went away. Blizzard just stopped supporting it. Heroes of the Storm, again, Blizzard just stopped supporting it. World of Warcraft, same deal. Why do I care so much about Blizzard games? There are but there are so few games of service, right, that I can truly get to grips with. I feel maybe I am freaking out because for me, Warframe is the last gaming bastion for me. Because things like Anthem, to me, Anthem was a flop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bloody hell, it didn't even bloody perform on my PC. I feel that Monster Hunter World, that is a learning curve above and beyond Warframe. People say Warframe has a difficult learning curve. I feel Monster Hunter World is so much harder.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right. I think this is much more me kind of freaking out because I am so concerned. I am so heavily invested in Warframe. And yeah, okay, I could go outside, right? But I'm struggling with a lot of things these days. Like, I'm not invested in the Star Wars movie anymore,
Mm-hmm.
or the Star Wars movies, because I feel that the last three, Rogue One, Solo, and Last Jedi, were awful. All three of them were just bad. I feel concluded with the MCU with Avengers.
Mm-hmm.
I think this phase 4 of Avengers is sort of the MCU is going to be a bit weak. I know I gave up on things like Game of Thrones. There are loads of people that were super invested in Game of Thrones, and then when the ending happened, loads of people just got really bitter and sour. You know, I can see in chat people mentioning Destiny 2. Like, nah, the only fun I have with Destiny 2 is when I play with other people. And I think that's likewise. You know, when we played the Hobbit, Lego Hobbit together, we had a load of fun doing that. And that's
Mm-hmm.
just two guys just having a laugh, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, maybe I'm just a sad, lonely fuck and I need more people to be in my life.
Well, I think, as was pointed out in chat just a moment ago, is that a lot of this comes down to the sunken cost fallacy. That where you start to care so much more about something because you've already put so much time and so much things into it, that it better be good because you've already like invested so heavily into it. I think that is definitely part of it, and I also think that a part of it is emotional attachment to the past. I think it's partly nostalgia driven. What do I mean with that? Is that, well, it's not necessarily nostalgia. It's having a hard time to let go of something. Like, one thing that you're saying is that if I care about Warframe, because if Warframe would be gone for me, if I wouldn't care as much about Warframe as I do right now, then what else am I going to do in the gaming space? Because the only games that I truly really care about, without having other people around, which are few and far between sometimes, is Warframe. So it's like we have Warframe, and then outside of that, there may be a few others. Like we have World of Warcraft, but then Blizzard fucked up, and what am I gonna do now? And like, again, it may sound really annoying me saying this all the time, but is that necessarily a problem? Because there are more things in life. Yeah, you can go outside, but let me point this out, is that I had a time in which I would pick up a lot of games, which was about 10 years ago. I started really getting into playing games. It started out when, like, around the time that the Wii came out. It's like, oh my god, let me go play many Wii games, but I didn't get that many. But then I got the PlayStation 3, and I played a lot of the games on there, and then I was like really focused on getting my stats and my kill death ratios, getting those right, and playing with my friends and playing with my school friends and stuff like that. And then I went on to PC gaming, and I would find every single free-to-play game and spend hours and hours into it. And I was looking for games in which I could spend as many hours into it as possible. And then boom, Warframe came along. It was like, here's a game in which I can spend thousands and thousands of hours. How cool. And nowadays, I find a game fun when I can carry it around. I recently got my hands on the Switch. I've been playing a lot of Super Smash. I enjoy it because I can just pick it up, play a little bit, and put it away. I've really enjoyed Persona 4 recently because it's something I can pick up and put away. And I enjoy playing The Outer Worlds because it's a game which I do for the Let's Play. But in general, if I wouldn't be doing games kind of as a job with YouTube and Twitch, I would be playing far less games. And I think that that's, like, in general, it's something which comes with age. That doesn't mean that if you're a certain age you can't play games. I'm definitely not saying that, but you won't see a 3-year-old play Warframe, and I don't think that you will find many people from a certain age and up playing a lot of Warframe. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that sometimes things and interests based on like where your interests lay and where your time lays and where your availability lays and what works changes. And that might be that we're growing a little bit out of like the gamer centric focused place that we were when we had all the time and we had all the means, and this was an entirely new thing to us. And maybe there's something else to be discovered. Just like I had with anime. When I joined in, I had so many series I could find, and now I have watched most of them. And I'm like, yeah, some new ones come out that are good, but nah. It's like, it's not necessarily a problem because there might be something else along the horizon. So when it comes to Warframe and what it teaches us about expectations, when it comes to especially Railjack and what it teaches us about expectations, I think that it is not necessarily a worry for the game or for the general trend or whatever it is. I think it's more a worry of our personal relationship to something that we have so heavily invested in being not so heavily invested as we once were, and being afraid of losing that. And I don't know. Actually, I don't think that that's a very bad thing.
Um, I'm loving this, by the way. I'm just loving this, exploration of one's self, right? Um, I think I think part of the problem I have is that if I want to leave Warframe or Warcraft or whatever, I
Mm-hmm.
want it to be on a high note. But if it's a high note, why would I ever leave? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like if you're in a relationship for years and then you end up, going separate ways, the problem is that you're looking at that relationship through the lens of the last events.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, if you had a messy breakup, that is what you're looking through, right? You are looking at all the past stuff with that in context. So all the good things were sullied by the worst negative experience part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that maybe I should take a break from being so heavily invested. I think part of my concern is, as I've previously mentioned, I've been so heavily invested in Warframe that the notion of losing that investment is kind of terrifying. It's very concerning. And, too rightly, as you said, when I was younger, and anime was a new thing. There were all these shows that I had access to at my fingertips. These days, it's most shows are pretty bland and generic. You know, everyone has been raving over the overly cautious adventure. I don't know what the name of the show is, and like I've watched several. I've watched a lot of it, and I'm just like, it's all right. It's a really slow starter. There are loads of things out there that it's just like it's all right. There's nothing to really, you know, get captivated by these days because a lot of maybe I'm just oh my god, maybe I'm just getting jaded in my age. But like a lot of stuff I find is just mass produced crap. Right?
Well,
I no, sorry, just to
yeah.
continue, right? I loved the original Jumanji film,
Mm-hmm.
and I loved the reboot film that happened. Well, the sequel that happened a few years ago. But I'm petrified of the new film that comes out later this week because of how well the last one did. Is this one just a cash cow, or is it actually a good film? And that's why I'm waiting for the reviews.
Well, 2 points that I want to raise. Number one is go to any music video on YouTube, especially older ones, and then look at the comment section. And one in the off the top 10 comments, the first one of those you will find says, "I was born in the wrong generation. People at my time can't appreciate the music of old. This music I live in sucks." You'll find out for
I'm
sure.
going to take that challenge. I'm
All
gonna
right,
take that
just look for something around the 80s, around the 90s, maybe even 70s, and see if you can find a comment that says, "I was born in the wrong generation. This
Thank you,
music
sir.
is way better. Please, please, God, take Justin Bieber and give us back Freddie Mercury." Shit like that. Because people seem to, I think that people seem to think that in the olden days things were way better. And I'm pretty sure that in the 80s and in the 90s, people were like, the music from the 60s and 50s was so much better. Like, if we continue on that logic, we're going to end up banging stones against each other and be like, "Oh, yeah, this is the best music ever." It's like, no, it's not. It's not. I think that part of it is just the recollection of things that have come before. So it's like, if you remember things, in general, you remember the good things. And you remember the things, the memories that are attached to great songs, great classics of old times. And you'd think that at the time, back then everything was great. It's not. It wasn't. And I don't know too much about this thing, but there will probably be studies around it. So look them up if you want to delve deeper into it. But I think it's a real thing that this entirety of like the older generations were better. They weren't, but we feel that way. And I think that part two, by my point two, when it comes to so point one is, I think that we're partly suffering from 10 years ago, things were way better. Games were better. Movies were better. If Warframe goes away, the last bastion of like live services will go away. It's like, who says that the best thing ever is not just around the corner? We don't know. But I think point two is also when you're talking about, well, my worries is that everything is just becoming a cash grab and you don't have such good original series anymore because, well, the good original series that I was watching, they're turning into cash grabs. It's like, well, let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at, number one, there are not that many good, original, amazing things anymore right now. And number two, the good, amazing, original things I was watching are turning into cash grabs. So, point one, I don't think that there is a very large increase ever in time, in recent time, in which good, cool, amazing, original, quality things came out by the dozens, where like, oh my god, they're just every episode that's being uploaded from anime is amazing, and it's like, it's not. Like, there were when like classics such as Dragon Ball, such as One Piece, such as Jumanji were released, there was also a bunch of crap which people hated. But the thing is, once you enter your interest into a field like anime or like games, there are classics or there are things which have already been out for a while which are widely recognized, and you can go into them and experience them for the first time. So during those years that you're exploring it for the first time, you're seeing these things which have already been sorted through and filtered through by the general user base, which is more experienced than you are in that field. And here you go, so many cool things to explore. Then you become one of those more advanced users within that field, and you become the one that's filtering through things. You're the one that's going through the fresh page and looking for all the series and like, is this a good one? Is that a good one? And you will encounter more things which are crap. So I don't think that in general there is a negative curve to less original things coming out. It's just that it just doesn't happen that much. So it doesn't necessarily satisfy our needs. It will never keep up. So I think that's point one. I think point two, that my original, amazing, crazy series are now turning into cash grabs. It's like, okay, well, what's a cash grab? It's like, okay, a cash grab is when you're trying to sell something which should be good, but I'm buying my way into it, and it turns out to be not as good. So most generally, cash grabs are considered with big corporations, with big studios, because small indie studios will never really do a cash grab. Why? Because they don't have the platform to do a cash grab, because no one is expecting something big from a small or an entity with a small reputation. So a cash grab can only be done by a large corporation or something which has a reputation of greatness. How do you get a reputation of greatness? Is by creating something original, cool, and amazing, and then you grow into something bigger, which is widely recognized. Well, it doesn't happen a lot that people make something amazing, cool, original, fantastic. At the same time, it's way, way rarer that people do it twice. As an example, this year, the very first video that I made this year got around 8,000 views now. I haven't made a video since that got that amount of views. And even if I make a really amazing video, I don't know if I can do that again. It's like the chances that you make something which is just as good, which isn't an exact copy, because if you do an exact copy, it's not original anymore. Those chances are really, really low. So it's like, yes, there are times where corporations or people get corrupt and they just want to like do the least amount of effort, get the most amount of money. But sometimes they might just try something which utterly, utterly fails. And it feels like a cash grab. And it feels like, oh, they've lost their spirit. It's like, where the hell should they go? It's like something like Dragon Ball. The fact that it's still going, it's like the original story of Dragon Ball wasn't supposed to be this long. And it just continues to go on because it's lucky that it still goes on. but not a lot of things do.
Actually, I don't know if you're aware of this, but God, I can't remember his name. The author of Dragon Ball, he wanted it to stop,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like that's why he made it so that it became about aliens and space and stuff like this. And then the volumes of manga, they took longer and longer to actually get anywhere. Because he wanted to stop producing it, but people kept on buying it. People were so, I suppose, heavily invested.
Mm-hmm.
And he was trying to, Akira Toriyama, that was it. He was trying to sabotage it, but it just didn't work. He couldn't sabotage it. It's like The Simpsons, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's got or Family Guy. So many of these projects they've gone downhill in terms of quality compared to the older stuff because they're tied into continuing production. I don't think that Warframe is like this. I think Anthem was a strong attempt to mimic Warframe, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think Anthem was a AAA attempt at, for a lesser extent, ripping off Warframe. But, EA being EA fudged it. They ruined it. And good. Not good for the people that worked on it, but I'm glad that, people didn't jump ship on Warframe. Maybe I am just overly worried. Maybe I'm throwing my toys out of the pram because New War's not happening. Maybe it's all these things put together. I think that the fact that the average of people that are interested in Railjack is in the case of the people that voted on the tweet that I put out, and I'm just going to say retweet the tweet, because the more people that retweet it, the more people will see it. The slimmer the chance that it's just my target audience. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure I did put the Warframe hashtag in there, but even so, it's like it's a good sample. I think 160 odd people is a good sample. I want it more, but I'd much rather see New War, and um, yeah.
I think I have been trying to be as, I wouldn't say factual or objective, but I've not been easy going on you so far, because I've been trying to like hammer away to like what could be deeper, and I think that if we're looking at it in an objective way, it's all
I think
it.
the biggest problem for me is past experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's looking at things like the Marvel comics, where years and years ago they had this comic book event which was called Civil War, and it spanned many, many different comics, many like Spider-Man, Iron Man, Squirrel Girl, Deadpool. It spanned a lot of stuff going on, and there were 7 issues of the core story of Civil War, and it involved nearly every hero. And
Mm-hmm.
the plot is simple. It is just pro-registration or against registration. And they had a fight. It lasted for 7 issues. It was really cool. And at the very end of the 7th issue, it is just Captain America going, "Oh, I give up." It's like, what? What the hell do you mean I give up? But I give up. It's like, why? We're destroying New York. No, you've destroyed New York. Ignore that. Continue fighting. Get on with the plot. Like, no, I give up now. And it's just like, it fell flat. And that was the last comic I bought, followed by the brief announcement afterwards of Aunt May dying and Spider-Man selling his... Sorry, no. He sells something to the devil, Mephisto, in order to resurrect Aunt May. Do you want to have a guess, unless you already know, what it was he sold to the devil to resurrect his aunt?
I have no idea. I've not read that. it would probably be something very important. Something he
Oh,
would
yeah,
never
it was important.
Okay, okay, no, I have no idea.
Right. Most people would think, oh, you're selling something to the devil. It's clearly your soul.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. It was his marriage to Mary Jane Watson.
Okay.
The devil retconned history so that he was never married to Mary Jane Watson.
Right.
Like everything else happened exactly the same. Not his marriage to Mary Jane Watson. And it was just like, this is the and it turned out the whole reason why it happened was because the author never liked the fact that Peter ended up with MJ. It's just like, what?
I should have said a shoe, just like Riku's, because he sold his soul. Damn it! Good stuff in chat. Okay, now the point I want to make is that I think if you look at things objectively, a lot of it doesn't make sense. Because it's like, even when people say, I am leaving Warframe, it's like, what does that even mean? Or taking a break from Warframe. What does it even mean? It's like, oh, I'm not playing it. It's like, well, most of the time you're not playing it. If you're asleep, you're not playing it. If you're doing other things, you're not playing it. Does that mean that every time you quit the game, you leave Warframe? Is it when you're not keeping up with every new update that you then leave Warframe? It's like, well, maybe I'm just not playing it for a while and then I come back. It's like, I think that if we look at it objectively, a lot of it is like, well, it's a sunken cost fallacy. It is your investment into something which is very irrational because what do you care? And even if this game goes down, it's not the end of the world. Even if this fails, even if you don't care about gaming at all anymore, what do you care? Because there's more to this world than just gaming. I think that objectively, you can rationalize a lot of things away. I think that the key thing is that you have invested, just like me, and just like a lot of people, we've invested so much into something, like this game, that it's become part of our character. And anything that fails, or anything where it comes short, or anything where it's being criticized, we do not just see it as a game or a separate entity or a thing being criticized or failing or doing badly. We see it as part of us that is being attacked, that's failing, that's not being liked, that's not being popular. And that hurts. And you could say, and I think this is a very rightful and healthy advice for people that find themselves to be too upset by things that are happening within Warframe or in anything right now where they're having very high expectations of. It's like, it's not you. If you have no control over it, it's not you. So don't care too much. Just go on with your life. But at the same time, if you were never to be invested into anything, how boring would it be, right?
I think the whole thing is it is escapism. You know, you are escaping the everyday aspects of your life to enjoy something else, something detached from you. You know, it's the whole, you know, people enjoy things like Game of Thrones for the exact same reason. It's escapism. You know,
I think it's even more identity building, because if, let's say that there would never be a Super Smash Bros. Coming out, I'd be like, oh, that sucks, but that sucks. I don't care more about that, even though I use that right now to escape from like the daily struggles of living another day. It's that I do not identify with Super Smash in the same sense that a lot of other people do. But I do identify with Warframe in a sense. And it's also why I think you have Warframe figures behind you on the shelf there.
those are the ones you're going to go for, not the Guyvers.
The Guyvers as well. Like, it's the reason why we've gone to TennoCon and not to GuardianCon. It's because we want to identify ourselves with something. It's the reason why people support sports teams and why people support, like, why people follow this stream or watch our videos. Because there are millions of other videos and other streams out there, which might be just as good or might be better. But, like, you identify with someone. And I think that yes, it starts with escapism, but it turns into part of your identity because it's nice to be part of something and have something that you care about.
Man, you're dropping all the deep thoughts this episode. Like, I'm not kidding. You are just like, man, I'm reflecting. I'm reflecting. No, I completely agree. I mean, it's not going to stop me from investing in Warframe. It's not going to stop me from feeling the way I feel. It's, but you bringing it up like you have does make me think things, like, okay, so let's flip the coin on my head. If it was, why is it on my head? If I flip the coin on its head, there's a high chance that if I was heavily invested in something like Railjack, I would come out worse.
Mhm.
I would want to just have the best experience possible. But if my expectations are too high, then, I might get completely distraught at the fact that it's not what I was expecting it to be,
Mhm.
you know?
I think I've had it a couple of times with Warframe where I was too hyped or too excited about something, and that hurts. It genuinely hurts when you're like hoping for something to be, and then it turns out to not be. And I think it's a natural reaction and a very important thing that you also learn to be wary of that, because I feel if I look at my personal experience with Warframe, it's something which I can very closely align to the YouTube thing, which is different, but I think very, very much the same, in which it's something you run into as escapism. It's like, it's just another game. You started off as just another game. But then you're kind of taken by surprise by how good it is. Because you never know when you pick up a series where you never know, like, know when you pick up a series whether it's going to be good, whether you're going to be really invested in it. You only find out. You'll find out. It's something that you stumble across. So you start up Warframe, and then you find out that, yes, this is it. And then you run into it naively. We all do with new things, because if you embrace something in a positive manner, it's better to embrace something in a positive manner because it allows you to move forward. Whether if you embrace it in a majorly negative manner, you hold back. And is it a smart thing to hold back or move forward? Doesn't We don't know. It differs per situation. And if I look at my YouTube experience, when I started making videos, I was super naive into getting to know as many people. I really wanted to get out there, know people like me, know creators like me, get to talk to as many people as possible. And I would consider everyone that I talked to, which was in any way remotely friendly to me, they'd be my friend. And I'd do anything for them. And then I learned that, well, then I came across an obstacle where it turned out that that wonderful thing wasn't necessarily as wonderful as I imagined it to be, because nothing is perfect. And I think that we had that with Warframe as well. We stumbled into it. It's like, oh my god, this is awesome. And you move forward it very positively. And like, boom, second dream comes out. Boom, Warframe income comes out. Oh my god, this is so awesome. Open world, maybe. Oh, fantastic. And then you run hat first into something. It's like, oh my god, I really don't like this. I think that for me, it came with PoE, where it was like I ran for all these quests because I also, like, if Arcwing didn't work out, I didn't care because I had other things to do. And then boom, I'm stuck at the end of the game. But no, they're coming out with Planes of Eidolon, and it's all the way to start the game. It's not like, oh my god, it's not that great. Oh fuck. And then like you have to reassess, and it's like, well, it's not as good. It's not as good as my naive old self thought. Is that a bad thing? But I think it's a good thing that you learn, like, because you did learn because you stumbled upon something. And if you would remain to be naive, maybe things will be more pleasant. But you would be dealing with a lie. You'd be dealing with a dream, with like this thing which you want to be but isn't. So it's better to protect yourself against bad situations in the future if you learn from your past mistakes. But is that fun? I don't think so. Sometimes it is, but most of the time it's not.
I think it's really important to be self-reflective,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think it's something that a lot of people don't do. They don't think to themselves, like I've known a lot of people that treat others poorly, right? And a lot of the time, they don't even realize they're doing it, right? They don't realize that, they are bullying others. They don't realize that they are out to try and make other people feel less. A little story time with Zeno.
Mm-hmm.
I used to work at the University of Birmingham. I don't really care that this is getting out there again. I worked under a witch of a supervisor. She was horrible to me. Everything I did was not good enough. Anything I said, she argued, no, you're just doing it wrong. And I knew how this technology worked. I built the technology.
Mm-hmm.
I understood how I was building it for her. And she was out to make my life and my colleagues' life absolutely miserable. We ended up on sick leave for months. I was off for 1 month. She was off for 6 months due to stress, right? We were working 12 plus hours a day. Typically the average number of hours you should work is 7.5 hours per day. Anyway, so I was miserable, and I thought this is just the way life is. You just feel miserable. And it wasn't until 10 months later, right? So I've been on sick leave, everything, and it was 10 months after she'd come back from an injury did we discover she had been made redundant. Instead of actually talking to us, instead of actually asking for help, she was bitter and twisted, and she made us feel like shit. To the point of, like, I would go home, I'd order a pizza, I'd lay in bed, I'd have the pizza next to me, just eating pizza and watching, like, just movies and shit, like doing absolutely anything I could to escape what reality was. And in all honesty, if we were more self-reflective, and that's how I got into improv, by the way, right? Improv is massively self-reflective. The first thing they taught me was, if I said the only person that gives a crap about your failures is you, right? So that taught me that I needed to get a new job, and I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I bloody love my new job, or my new job in this case. But I think that people, if you're not happy, you need to realize why you're not. You need to reflect on what is it that makes you not happy. Just stop and think about it.
Mm-hmm. Very important. I think that's some pretty good advice. Like, seriously. I think that definitely one of the things that you should always keep in mind is that if you find yourself in a situation in which you're unhappy, you should always, your first reaction should always be to look for things that you can improve yourself. Because if you're not doing that, you're instantly making everything worse. And that's not me saying that you are to blame for all your situations, for all the bad situations you come into. But let's say that the entire world was turned against you, and there was nothing that you could potentially do about your shit situation and trying to get you out of there. Well, what are you going to do? You're just going to sit and cry? It's like, hopefully, there would be something which you can do. Because even if the odds are turned against you, if there's one thing that you can do, you'd better be doing it, because you can make things better. And what you see a lot, because a lot of times when you're self-reflecting, and a lot of times when you're looking at things which you could do to make things better, but which you didn't know before, because you just learned about, like, hey, I could do this to make things better, a lot of times it also confronts people with, I haven't done this yet. maybe it's because of me, and maybe it's because of you. But the fact that you're reflecting, you're trying to take action, that's a good thing. That you always overcome your anxiety and your holding backness because of I'm doing things wrong. It's like, sure, whatever, you're doing things wrong. No one cares. It's about that you can improve something. And what you see with your supervisor, the fact that she was made redundant, it's like most of the time people that are acting that way, it's like they're facing issues. They're facing things in their life. And instead of trying to improve where they can, where being nice to you guys is something, where being nice to your fellow humans is something which you can do to make yourself a little better. It's like, she didn't do that because she didn't think of that. She most likely thought that people were working against her. And that because people were working against her, well, fuck it, then I'm not going to be nice either. And it's like, I can understand that. I can fairly understand that. If people have been mean to you, if there have been situations which are absolutely garbage, where you had no control about getting you into that situation and it feels completely undeserved, you can 100% feel right in feeling that, well, the world has been shit to me, so why the hell would it not be justified if I'm shit to the world? Well, like, maybe it's justified, but that doesn't make things better. And things will get back to you in the long run. And even if they don't, it's better to assume that they do than that they don't. Because if you don't, and they do, well, that's kind of fucked up. Anyway, let's bring this back to the start of the topic. What did Railjack teach us about expectations? And I think that because it's part of our identity. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's something we deal with. And life goes on outside of things, so you can be excited about expectations, but whatever, you know? If it fails, it fails. However, now that we figured it out, what do we do? What do we do about our expectations of something like Railjack?
I think it's important that in something like an upcoming release for Warframe,
let's take Railjack.
For Railjack, for anything. You know, the upcoming Star Wars movie, Railjack, the next WoW expansion, whatever you want to take. You know, I think it's important to understand your emotions. So not to temper them, not to go, oh, this is gonna be bad, or not to go, oh, this is gonna be amazing. You know, we're not saying to you, don't have those emotions. Don't, set it from 10 to 5. We're just saying, appreciate why you're having these emotions. I'm excited at the prospect of firing Loz out of a torpedo tube.
Yay!
Right? But if for whatever reason that feature is not there, I'm not going to turn around and say it's a cataclysmic failure, right? If there's a communication issue, right? I will do my damnedest to find the problem. But one thing I will recommend, right? I will urge anyone and everyone is to use any communication you want, be it Reddit, the forums, or Twitter, or YouTube, or anything, or even just an email, right? And tell DE what your opinion is, right? I think Railjack is a cataclysmic success. I think Railjack could benefit from communication, improved communication. I feel that Railjack could be improved with more Arcwing related. I feel Railjack is an unmitigated disaster and you should stop and move on to New War. Tell them how you feel, but do not gut react. Reflect on your feelings now and reflect on your feelings then.
Mm-hmm. I think that especially when it comes to Warframe, it's a good advice. Like, if you're like, go to the appropriate outlets and let them know. There's one thing where I want to ask you. What do we do when we're faced with something? Because I think that this is the biggest problem with not necessarily with the expectations. I think we've established that this game or any franchise, but we're leading this topic via Warframe's Railjack, Warframe has become part of our identity. So we want it to succeed because then it feels like we succeed. It's like our team we're rooting for. And if it fails, it feels like our team fails. And it's like part of us fails. However, the problem that our expectations go down is not because the game does bad, but it's because the game does bad, so we do bad as well. The part of ourselves that identifies with Warframe will do bad if Railjack goes bad. And there's, aside from voicing our opinions, there's nothing we can do about it. And when it comes to something like Star Wars, or let's say Anthem, maybe I was very invested into Anthem. There was nothing I could do about the critical mistakes it made. Maybe I really identified with Arkwing, and there's nothing I can do about it. Bringing it back, raids. There's nothing I feel I can do right now to bring raids back right now. So how do you deal with the part of over which you have no control when it comes to expectations you're having with Railjack or things that you identify with?
So let's take the example of like, how could you influence DE to bring back raids? Well, what could you do? What do you think you could do?
Well, you could go to the forums. You could go to the Reddit. You could make posts about it. You could start an entire YouTube channel around it and gather as many people as possible and be like, hey, we want raids. You could learn coding and make your entire clone of Warframe and put raids in that. You could try and like buy lottery tickets and become a billionaire and buy digital extremes and then tell them to put in raids, and then you have your raids.
There's a lot of ideas here. But the big thing is, the one I like the most out of your suggestion was basically making it yourself, right? You don't have to make a clone of Warframe, but you could at least come up with how could you make it better, right? So one thing that I think Warframe could benefit from is, you know how we have the radial wheels for our gear items and for emotes, and we could have another gear wheel, which is action, right, for Railjack. So you could have a gear wheel, which is you hold down the button and you're like, someone put out fires, right? Maybe Cephalon Psi will randomly select someone and just go, or maybe it'll just shout it out to everyone, there are fires on the bridge, or, there are fires on the ship, put them out, right? We don't have enough bullets. Make more bullets. Or you could do anything, right? So with raids, what could you do to make them bring them back? You could use the systems that already exist. Things like, what's the name of the damn thing? The procedural generation. The raids did not use the procedural generation of environments. You could look to implement that. That's something that Warframe does really, really well. You could look to do something in the planes. Take away all the bad guys, right? Maybe lock down the player's area of movement to one small section of the planes, and then throw a boss in there, right? Maybe it could be the super rope-a-dope list. You could do a lot, but proposing ideas helps other people spark ideas. The whole conversation we've had, you have helped me realize that my own worries and concerns were just self-reflective. Oh my god, WoW did badly. Oh my god, Anthem did badly. Oh my god, DE's taking a huge risk. It's like Warframe's gonna do it badly. So do you see my point? Yeah. So if you're able to present ideas, maybe you could get it heard. I mean, how do you think we got the Law's torpedo tube, huh?
Yeah.
I'm not taking credit for that at all, by the way.
I will give you credit for that. But yeah, I can see that people might say, well, how unrealistic is that? That's something I could never do. It's like, well, there's a start. And the start is always the first step. And some things are a huge commitment. And if you're interested in something like what Drew's been talking about in another form of media, I would like to redirect you to this YouTube video called, just go to YouTube and search for Fader. They've only made one episode so far, but this is a 10-minute episode of a series, a Star Wars series, where they're trying to tell the story of Darth Vader in between the episode 3 and episode 4. And they were not happy with the way that the new Star Wars movies were portraying the series. So what they did is they literally made it themselves. And it looks absolutely gorgeous. And I like it a lot more over all the new material that's been coming out. And it is freaking awesome. It's like the epiphany of doing it. If it doesn't work the way you like it, do it yourself. But it's a big project, and it's something that not everyone is able to do. It's like it's costs a lot of time of investment of finding the right people, of having the skills, of learning the skills. But it comes to a point like, how much do you care? And it's like, if it's something that you really truly care about and you can't let go, then I don't even need to tell you that it's worth investing your time into, because you already know. And if you don't care so much, well, thank God you don't care so much, because there are other things in life. And just as I said with Call of Duty, there are parts in it which were really bad, which I didn't play. But I don't mind, because there will be parts which I do like to play.
Man, this guy's produced a lot of videos.
Yeah, he did, but like this Fader one, like they're still
Yeah,
working on
I
episode
have
2. They take a long
Yeah.
time, but like it is really nicely made. I really like it.
Yeah.
So, I think it might be time for questions.
Yep. Let's go to questions. Sorry, that kind of derailed me. Yeah. No, I think we've come to a healthy conclusion. Also, my food is getting cold. So,
Oh, yeah.
but by the way, I ordered it to be delivered by 9:15, so in 15 minutes time, right? And then all of a sudden the timer changed, and it's just like, what? So yeah.
He's having
Wasn't
some
intent-
delicious pizza. I promise you guys, if we get invited into TennoCon for a live FrameCast, that we're going to be doing an hour-long FrameCast live on stage, we will bring pizza for all of you in chat right now.
I better start saving.
Well, it's 14 people in chat right now, so it's 14
Oh, so
people.
get a slice each then.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's 14 pizzas, eh? Like, if Warframe invites us, and then like we can also do an hour-long FrameCast live on stage. Like, those are things that need to be met. Then
Oh my-
yeah, sure, I'll buy 14 pizzas for you guys.
Oh my. And then we just get heckled off the stage.
No, can you imagine how like you've been to every single TennoCon so far? Okay,
Yeah.
is there anything that would be better than watching the FrameCast live on stage while sitting in those very relaxed like city things that they have, these beanbags, while eating a pizza?
Listening to 10 o'clock.
I mean, we can get lost on.
I'm joking. I'm joking. Yeah, it could be the three of us. That'd be hilarious.
Yeah, I mean,
Do it live.
yes. So it's like I don't think I've ever done anything better than I've seen anything better on TennoCon than that. So hey, Warframe, get on it. Okay, questions. Yay!
Do we have any questions?
I don't know. Let's see.
I don't know.
If you guys want to ask us anything regarding towards the topic at hand, towards the game at hand, which might be Warframe or World of Warcraft, or if you want to ask us about anything at all, feel free to put it in chat.
Yes, comic books are weird.
Tenno Framecast. Tenno Framecast.
I don't know. I'm thinking. I think I like frame clock cast.
The
That's
frame
too
clock.
hard to say.
The clock cast.
God, it just doesn't work. But what color is the pizza? Pizza colored. Given the special transmission tweet thing that DE posted on their Twitter and the special announcement that is going to happen during the Game Awards, do you think that DE will screw up the marketing and hype up, delaying the launch of Railjack at the end of the month? First off, it will come out before if it comes out, it'll come out before the end of the month because DE will shut down for Christmas. So yeah. Hydroid Deluxe rating 1 to 10.
It's Hydroid, so 10.
8.
Oh!
When will we finally get the Hydra Prime trailer? When you make it.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I'm kind of sad because like we used to have this like Warframe partner Discord, which was an example of like if it's not there, make it. And at one point that was like an active thing where some people talked into. We knew who was going to TennoCon and stuff like that. But like I was reflecting on that. Like this week, it's like people are like, oh, I might go. Some streamers go. I was like, I really don't know because like I know you are going, but I don't know that many other people whether they're going or not because like I don't have that contact with them. But I was like, if we had that communication still, we should actually band together with a couple of video creators within YouTube, within Warframe, and make a bloody good ass Hydra Prime trailer. Like that would be so cool.
What do you think? What do you two think will be the reaction of the community if Railjack is terrible? They just won't play it. They'll just complain and won't play it.
It will be like Fortuna. It will be like Arcwing and stuff like that. Like it will just be that there are people that are like, oh my god, this is terrible. Warframe really doesn't care about their veteran players. Oh my god, this is terrible. Warframe really doesn't care about introducing things. I will never play Warframe again. I hate it. I'm gonna delete this game and my account in which I spend thousands and thousands of dollars. Also, when is the next Devstream? That'll be exactly how it will be. Is there a small chance?
Is there a small chance that New War is shown again in TennoCon 2020? I fucking hope not.
I hope not.
I will lose my shit.
I mean, I said I was going to lose my shit if Railjack didn't come out before TennoCon 2019, and it's still not out, so hey.
Oh yeah, we'll just tease this cinematic quest for 3 years in a row!
I mean, who would have thought that 2 years was going to happen? So, hey. Also, what do you think of Persona 4? Arteria asks, and what will you do Persona 3 and Persona 5? Most likely soon, maybe. I've been trying my hand with like gameplay videos where I can actually play through games and keep them on the YouTube channel and make them series. So, there are some kinks that I've been working out with the Outer Worlds. One of them is my upload frequency and the way to edit. And it's like I want to upload more so we can get done with something in like 2 or 3 weeks. I think that's a reasonable rate. But then Persona 5 is definitely on the radar. And maybe Persona 3 as well.
Right, I think last question. Will we be getting more than one quest next year? I think we'll be lucky if we get one quest next.
What are you talking about? Getting something next year?
What are you talking about? Updates?
Oh my god. I am so glad. Guys, you should really check out Warframe. It's this very regularly updating game. It updates at least once every decennia. And
I wanted to call you Tommy Rousseau then for your laugh, but I couldn't remember what his first name was for ages.
It's not true. I did not hit her. Oh, hi, Mark.
Stop.
All right, I think we've pretty much come to the end of the FrameCast there.
We're done. Thank you very much for everyone to coming and listening. I hope this has been an entertaining episode. I've noticed that our viewership has been going up and down, but it's been a healthy number this entire time, so that's great. I think we've had a great episode. We've reflected very well on the expectations. It's great. I hope everyone else will again take what we've said and reflect themselves on what they're expecting for content. Warframe's just gone live, and I need to go eat my pizza. So
yeah,
if this is the first time you're hearing this on anywhere, you can come again. We're live on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. GMT or 8 p.m. CET and 2 p.m. PST. On twitch.tv/Michelle Postma. You can also find the highlights at youtube.com/Xenogalleon, and you can find the full episode 24 hours later on youtube.com/PostMaloneGames. Additionally, Yes, I will pimp the Patreons, Zachamus. Additionally, if you do want to support the channels, you can support my channel on patreon.com/Xenogalleon, and you can support Michelle's on patreon.com/Michelle Postma. All the money that goes to my channel, sorry, my Patreon, gets respent into the production of the videos. That includes Arbiters and the Framecast highlights. So some of the money will end up going to Michelle anyway. And yeah, that'd be the thing, yo.
Hell yeah. See
Yeah,
you guys
we'll
around.